kind of on that topic, I think we should jump to gun control real quick.
Okay, let's do that real fast. Okay. Hold on.
Gun violence is an epidemic. If you want to protect yourself, get a double-barrel shotgun. Gun violence in this country is an epidemic. Watch out! You think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests?
Yeah.
Yep.
NBCnews.com. 3 people are dead after a man opened fire in an Indianapolis mall. The shooter was killed by a Good Samaritan, police said. And this is kind of on the topic of religious language and other things.
Yep.
So we'll just pop this one off real quick here. 4 people were dead, including the suspected shooter, after a man with a long gun entered a mall south of Indianapolis and opened fire, police said. 2 others were injured in the early evening attack at Greenwood Park Mall. Jim Eisen, the police chief of Greenwood, Indiana, said at a Sunday night news conference. One remained hospitalized, he said. A 12-year-old girl with abrasions was treated and released. 4 of 6 people who were injured or killed were female, Eisen said. The shooter appeared to have been fatally shot by a 22-year-old, quote, Good Samaritan, who witnessed the attack and opened fire with a handgun with the intention of ending the assault, Eisen said. He praised the young man, identifying him only as being from Bartholomew County, south of the metro area. Quote, the real hero of the day was the Samaritan that was lawfully carrying a firearm who was able to stop the shooter almost as soon as it began, Eisen said. Now, this is a very interesting story because it's been noted by people like us, Gons, as well as ourselves, that they never report on the mass shootings that get stopped by a lawfully armed citizen. And I think it's strange, just a little weird, that instead of, saying it's is a lawfully armed citizen, a just casual American practicing the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms for self-defense. It's not just like a normal thing. It has to be the Good Samaritan.
The Good Samaritan, this anonymous, religiously affiliated title for this anonymous individual, this mysterious hero.
Yeah. Also, theologically strange thing to say. Now, of course, was this police chief thinking about the theological implications of what the Good Samaritan actually means? No.
Probably the cultural application of the phrase more than the
just sort
actual
of like
biblical account. But sure, I guess you can stretch the story to fit the analogy, I guess. But yeah.
Right. But, in the fact being that this is never, ever reported on.
Yes.
And I think now it is, which is very interesting.
We had a source a few episodes ago that said that like 1.5 million per year or something, 1 million times or something.
It's something like 1 million self-defense cases that are used, that a gun is used to defend oneself. Yeah. But even more so, mass shootings. The the frequency of mass shootings, and I guess popularity in the news to cover them for weeks on end. But very rarely reporting the ones that are stopped. Yeah. Now, interestingly enough, this was a 22-year-old, which is right
in that pocket.
Right in the pocket.
Yeah.
Right in the pocket. The 18 to 22 or 23-year-olds are the ones apparently carrying the guns.
Yeah. We have the mass shooters seemingly from, or being painted at least from the right side of the aisle, as maybe liberal or Antifa or whatever. And those guys have been established as a violent force for the left, Democrat, whatever, progressive line of thought. And now we are establishing the militant or violent force for the right, which is this these young, law-abiding white Americans that carry guns who are heroes, but also be scared because they have guns.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Because immediately you just assume that he's sort of a Rittenhouse character.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
He's a white kid. You just assume. They give no details.
No details, yeah.
But you just assume.
They already have the prototype, the archetype.
A white conservative young man.
Right.
Now, here's the ironic part, and this is not necessarily profitable, but as far as the analysis goes, if one is familiar with the Samaritan, the Good Samaritan story, it's not just that somebody did a good thing. It's that it's somebody you would consider to be an enemy or an outsider, specifically outsider. Right. A Samaritan was an outsider in ancient
Biblical
Israel.
Times,
and so they were there's a lot of tension. Sometimes they were outright hated, considered dogs, which is hilarious because they practiced basically Judaism with a couple slight differences. So, the Good Samaritan has a lot of layers to it. So if indeed the Good Samaritan was going to apply to this shooter, it would need to be some sort of black migrant person who was legally carrying, an outsider who stopped the shooting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see that.
Interesting. That's what I mean. Of course, he wasn't actually trying to give a sermon, the police chief, by using the Good Samaritan. But if it really were an actual Good Samaritan, it would have been a sort of immigrant, minority type who voted for AOC, who also happened to be carrying a gun that day.
Explode legally, the brains of all on political Twitter.
Yeah. And so that is just a way, just for a quick deconstruction of this is crazy that they even actually reported on this, especially on NBC. Some very sort of deep, a lot of layers to it.
I think it's indicative of a true radicalization. And I use that word to describe what's happening in a sense, because it's a young generation has what's the thing I'm thinking of? Something to grind. What's the word I'm looking for?
An axe to grind?
Axe to grind. That's the phrase. They've given two sides something to fight for, right?
Yeah.
And that's really, I don't know, it's dangerous. And I see it in history too. Like I think about Japan with the whole takeover of the samurai and the shogun and all that. It was equip the young people with the guns. They did the exact same thing in Japan. They're like, okay, well, they do that. They're technologically more, there's more of a difference there in terms of the situation with samurai only having swords, couldn't really compete with the ballistics. But in a sense, it's sort of the same thing where you're radicalizing the young people. And then because even though they're painted as heroes, and
who's the radicalized one here? You're saying the defender, the one who stopped the shooting is radicalized?
Yes. So here, let me be very clear about it. So I think you mentioned Kyle Rittenhouse being, coming to mind as sort of the type.
That's the connection for sure. The immediate connection.
Right. And I think when I say archetype, I mean it in the sense that we're going to see more people fit that model of, hey, we're law-abiding citizens. We're here to defend. But the more and more of those people that are out there that are there to defend and they're armed and everything, it's almost inviting conflict. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, there's something that we need to defend.
That was the exact story of Rittenhouse. That's what the whole Rittenhouse thing revolved around. Right. And so he was inviting conflict.
I think most people that are open and caring and doing these, especially the young people, they mean well, unless there's backroom deals happening and the government is saying, hey, we'll give you money to do, which I'm sure it happens at some level. But I think most people are just good law-abiding citizens.
Of course.
But I think we're more talking about the narrative that's being distributed on the apparatus here.
I actually have to disagree with you here. I think that this is indicative of the shift that we've been seeing of the pendulum swinging to the conservative side. We've seen it in so many aspects of society. And I think reporting on positive gun stories, I think we might see it a little bit more and more.
I'm saying we're going to see more and more, but I think that's part of the radicalization process. I think it's going to be put as a
good thing.
Oh, no, it's fine to be a good thing. It's fine to be a good thing.
I'm just saying it's going to be reported, which would be unusual.
Right.
Because you never see reported positively, gun stories.
Right.
But I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'm just seeing the shift, man, and it's happening quickly.
Yeah. No, I just want to make the distinction between the narrative and just the individuals that are out there that, you know, are just people that are good citizens. You know what I mean? Because,
of course.
Because this whole thing is meant to make you all look crazy. You know, the people that are out there that are good law abiding citizens to look insane and to be like, oh, we're good people, but we all have guns and we can shoot you any moment.
You mean just the very act of
if we think
carrying
you're
a
a
gun
threat,
is scary to somebody.
Yes,
right?
but also if we think you're a threat, we'll shoot, you know?
Yeah,
it creates totally that. But you're right. I guess I'm saying the same thing as you in terms of the conservative.
I think we've got little different angles, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Sure.
I mean, I think the only difference that I'm seeing is I'm not sure that. I mean, this will scare, you know, a certain sort of blue-haired population. The thought of somebody carrying a gun, but the fact that it was so positively reported and stopped a mass shooting, you know. That's what's strange. And I think we'll start seeing that more.